And hello and good morning, good evening. Cheers. And apologize for the mic in the shot. I'm trying to minimize background noise by bringing the mic closer, so we'll see how this goes. So today I wanted to share a public service announcement about the perils of Windows updates. And if you use Business Central Docker containers, if you haven't run into this fun issue yet, you probably will eventually. Just the nature of the pace of Windows updates, it seems, is causing these issues. And I saw a couple people get bit by this in the last couple weeks, and I just got bit by it in a different way last night, or this morning, so thought I would share that with you. So let's jump into it. So you're probably familiar with this message, Windows Update, and it lists a bunch of updates, and you're thinking, okay, just a typical Windows update. And in another universe, that might be true, but if you use Business Central Docker containers, you do need to be careful. These are not, you can't just ignore these and apply these and say, okay, fine, I'll be fine. If you're running Docker Desktop or Docker Enterprise, depending on whether it's Windows 10 or Windows Server, you'll want to look at your Windows updates carefully on these machines. And in general, I would say defer updates. You can do Windows Defender updates. In my experience, those have not been an issue. .NET updates, kind of secondary or ancillary patches or updates seem to be okay. But the OS updates, you have to be careful with. Now, in this image, you see cumulative update for Windows Server 2019, and then it has 1809 in parentheses. So that tells me that, okay, this is an OS update for Windows Server, and I happen to be running the 1809 version of Windows Server 2019. But is this really a typical Windows update? So if you look closely, I learned this the hard way several months ago. There is one word that makes this update very different than your other typical Windows updates. That is the word preview. Now, I have no idea why my Docker server is constantly getting these, but almost every OS update for my 1809 server is getting the previews early. And this is not Windows Insider. I'm not signed up for Windows Insider. I do not have it enabled on this machine. I've never used Windows Insider, nor do I have any desire to be a guinea pig for testing these updates. This is essentially my internal production dev BC Docker machine. It is a dedicated Windows Server machine. I do not want previews. I do not want insider builds. I want stable releases. Unfortunately, I keep getting these. So when I see them, I make sure to not apply them. But you'll notice at the bottom, getting things ready, 0%. I saw this yesterday, took the screenshot. It installed automatically last night, apparently. either last night before it shut down or this morning when this machine booted up automatically. And I didn't even realize it had happened. I only just luckily just happened to grab this screenshot yesterday. So why should you care about these things? Because the OS version, in my case 1809, I think there's a 1909, 2004, 20H1, 21H1, something like that. The OS version and even the build, the last 4 digits of the build, matters for Business Central Docker images. Because the current, because Docker, BC Docker images rely upon a matching OS base image, the Windows generic host OS image. If that Docker image does not match your OS host image, there can be incompatibilities and problems. And I don't understand the plumbing or the mechanics or the architecture of Docker, but I just know if I have a Docker base OS image of version 1935 and my Windows server updates to a new build, 1971 or whatever it is, I'm going to have a mismatch, and that can lead to problems. I've had it before, realized the issue, and now I know what to look out for. So that's why you should care. And I'll give a second example later. So I specifically choose to use Windows Server 2019 to host my BC Docker images. And I am on the LTSC, long-term support channel or something like that, of Windows Server. So I am Windows Server 2019 LTSC. I am not on the semi-annual channel or SAC build because I want a stable OS. I do not want it to change. I do not want to fight updates and issues with new updates. I want the stable channel. And that has worked fairly well for me, except for these preview updates that sneak in and I cannot stop them. No matter what I choose in Windows updates, I cannot prevent these updates from automatically being installed. But fortunately for me, these are just like a service pack or KB updates that I can uninstall after the fact, after they break things. So here is the fundamental problem that I described. This first screenshot is the log from BC Container Helper. It will warn you, but the log can be several pages long. So unless you've saved it, unless you're looking for it, or you know what to look for, you may not even notice this as it flies by. And the warning is it checks the Container OS version, which is the Business Central container image, the underlying base OS image that it's using. And then it checks your host OS image of the machine or VM or whatever Docker is running on. And you'll notice in this build log, Container OS is 1935. That's the latest available version that we have for the BC OS images, base OS images that can be used. Well, because this preview, it's a preview. It's not a fully released OS build. The preview pushed my OS to 1971. As a result, the host OS and base image container OS will not match. And that can lead to stability issues, compatibility issues, problems with your containers running. And I took a screenshot of Docker images. So this is the base OS image that is available for our BC containers. And this is what Freddie is able to pull from a stable OS and build for us. Well, he's not going to deal with the preview images, rightly so, because maybe that preview image changes. Maybe they don't release it. Maybe it's a different build. And I don't know how many there are. So he goes with the stable OS builds. So I had an older one, 1879. I now have 1935. 1971 is not available yet. So it causes a problem. Now, in this particular case, well, first of all, I learned this lesson a couple months ago, and so I modified my BC container build script, my PowerShell script. It's rather long, but it's pretty mundane. So I have my build script email me every morning. So it says, hey, I built new BC containers for you. Here's what happened. And it attaches the full build log. one of the things I added, I think is back in February, February, is I now check for those warnings. So when this happens, I specifically check for that. I don't pull it from this log, but I do my own check. So I go and check the container OS build, and I check my host OS build via the registry. I compare those two values, and if there is a mismatch, I add this warning to the email, and I send out a warning email, not a successful build email. So this morning, I woke up and I see in my inbox 2 warning messages for my 2 different container builds that are getting created. Warning, container OS build 1935 does not match host OS build 1971. And I immediately knew what happened. I remembered the screenshot I took yesterday, the preview update. I knew it had been applied. Sure enough, it incremented my host OS build to a new build that is not yet available for the container base OS images. And interestingly, this time, just by chance or luck, looks like the containers did get created successfully and they appeared to work. I was able to launch the web page and log in, but no guarantee that it's not going to have issues or reliability problems. So I went and rolled back and uninstalled that OS preview version from Windows Update. So anyway, and if you're interested in the PowerShell script, I do have a blog post at blog.steveendo.com. I'll try and copy this link below the video once it gets published to YouTube. But if you just go to blog.steveendo.com and search for automated PowerShell script, you should find my blog article showing my entire PowerShell script with this warning in there. And I just use Windows Task Scheduler. It runs at like 7 a.m. in the morning and something like that. And it automatically deletes and recreates my 2 BC containers every single morning. And if I need to have something installed, license file, test libraries, Eric Hugard's BCCL extension, which I'm now playing with and learning and testing, just automatically install everything I need so that I have a fresh container, 2 fresh containers every morning. Because I learned 1 is not enough, because if one has a problem, I won't have any containers. And so far what happens is if my first one fails, my second one happens to succeed. So having that backup has been helpful. So that's Windows Server 2019. That's been my experience, and that's what I use, and that's my setup. But what about Windows 10 versions? It's even worse. So I don't really pay much attention to, or as much attention to, my Windows 10 builds on my laptop or my desktop. You know, those updates tend to get forced down, and sometimes you can defer them, but sometimes I just reboot and it says, hello, we're making changes to your system, or whatever that generic message is that freaks me out and makes me think my OS just got wiped. But Freddie warned on May 11th. He said, hey, you might want to hold off on updating a Windows 10 21H1 still in preview. Common theme, right? Until the corresponding Windows Server core image has shipped. So what is happening is Windows updates, previews are getting pushed before some of the underlying subsystems and infrastructure get updated for that build. And it's causing all sorts of version, nightmares for different teams, and we're at the very tail end of this, and Freddie is scrambling to cobble all these versions together to produce stable builds for Business Central Docker containers. So, there's only so much he can do, and he detected that the 21H1 host cannot run the older containers. And so, warning, hey, don't do this update. Well, Luke knew about this, but the updates will slip in. If you don't keep deferring them, it gets persistent and it will push and install. And that happened to him. So it got installed and his containers don't work, and he cannot create new containers as a result of this. So real problem. And I'm assuming you cannot easily roll back that 21H1 update. It's like an OS version update. It's not just a little service pack or KB update you can roll back. So not pretty. Now, apparently there is some type of workaround that he was able to use, but it will be painful for the couple week period until this gets settled and Docker and the BC images start to run stable on those builds. But this is one of several reasons why I do not want to run my BC Docker on Windows 10. I'll do it on my laptop because I don't use that as much, but my server is Server 2019 LTSC. I want it to be stable. I do not want to fight these Windows 10 updates and all the problems they cause. So with that, that is your public service announcement of Windows updates for the day. So be careful, and if you automate your builds, feel free to try my PowerShell script, or just be careful with those Windows updates. Okay, and with that, have a good day. Cheers.
Do do do